Carrie Morgan was Cassie Ventura's former best friend, Carrie Morgan. She described witnessing Combs assaulting Cassie twice.
Cassie for 17 years, but things went sour after she alleged that Diddy beat her with a wooden coat hanger and she signed an NDA.
Did one moment in court cause Diddy to completely lose his composure? You won't believe what happened when Carrie Morgan, Cassie's close friend, took the stand.
Cassie Ventura's former best friend, Carrie Morgan. She described witnessing Combs assaulting Cassie twice, the first time in a home Combs was renting in the Hollywood Hills. Morgan testified that, quote, "I saw him push her. I'm pretty sure he hit her." The second time allegedly happened in Jamaica. Morgan says they were in the bar area of a home when, quote, "I heard her screaming." She recalled guttural, terrifying screams. Combs faces the possibility of life in prison if convicted. He's pleaded not guilty and has denied all wrongdoing.
The courtroom was filled with a low murmur, quiet conversations, the rustle of papers, and the occasional creak of chairs as everyone settled in, expecting just another routine day. The mood wasn't exactly tense, but there was a noticeable weight in the air. Seated at his table, Diddy appeared calm and composed, leaning slightly back in his chair. His legal team sat beside him, flipping through documents with an air of confidence, as though they had everything under control. Behind the courtroom barriers, members of the press whispered among themselves, cameras ready to catch anything out of the ordinary. Then, something unexpected happened. Carrie Morgan walked in, a name that had surfaced occasionally during the proceedings. Carrie, Cassie's closest friend, wasn't someone many had predicted would take the stand. Yet as she entered, the atmosphere noticeably shifted. Calm and determined, she took her place before the court. The prosecution greeted her with familiarity and purpose. On the other side, Diddy's legal team exchanged uncertain glances. Diddy's attention locked onto her, his previously relaxed posture subtly tightening. As Carrie was sworn in, the energy in the room changed. Those observing closely could see it. Diddy's confidence was beginning to fade. Though he's known for maintaining control under pressure, subtle changes gave him away. His jaw clenched, he leaned forward, hands clasped, eyes narrowed. Carrie began to speak, and soon the quiet tension gave way to something more intense. Witnesses described the moment as electric. The courtroom hung on every word Carrie spoke, and even more closely on how Diddy responded, and then, the moment that shifted everything. Carrie revealed deeply personal, emotionally charged details that struck a chord. Suddenly, Diddy slammed his hand on the table, his voice cutting through the silence as he interrupted her testimony. According to reports, he appeared visibly distressed. One journalist later described the scene. It was as though he just couldn't hold it in any longer. Security guards stood alert. The judge repeatedly called for order. Diddy, however, continued reacting, gesturing toward Carrie, shaking his head, whispering sharply to his legal team. It was a striking contrast to the carefully managed public image he'd always projected. Courtroom witnesses later described the moment as surreal. You could hear a pin drop, and then, suddenly, the whole room was on edge, said one observer. Even members of Diddy's legal team appeared caught off guard, working quickly to calm him. Outside the courthouse, cameras captured a whirlwind of activity during the recess that followed. Reporters scrambled to gather the details. But one question hung over the entire incident. What did Carrie Morgan say that shook Diddy so deeply? Whatever it was, her words clearly carried enough weight to impact one of the music industry's most composed and resilient figures. To truly understand Diddy's reaction, we need to look closer at who Carrie Morgan is and why her testimony may hold the key to this entire case.
Carrie Morgan was on the stand. That was Cassie Ventura's former best friend. What did Carrie say happened after that incident?
Cassie Ventura left the Intercontinental Hotel, went back to her apartment, her home, and there was Carrie Morgan waiting. She said immediately she saw the black eye that Ventura had testified Combs gave her after the freak-off got violent, and the whole reason why then the subsequent assault in the hallway happened. And then Carrie Morgan said about a half hour later, Sean Combs starts banging on the door with a hammer. It was not let in, but she said she heard him yelling, finally called some of Combs' staff members to try to get him to leave. Police were called, but Cassie Ventura said, and Carrie Morgan backed this up, that nothing ever came of it because Cassie Ventura refused to say anything about Sean Combs and what happened to her.
Aaron, I have to ask you, because Combs was sitting just feet away from Don Richard and Carrie Morgan in court today. How did he react to seeing them and hearing all of this?
He's been an attentive listener. In some cases, he would shake his head or nod along or consult with his lawyers, scribbling a lot of notes. This was an important part of the testimony because it made a turn, Eva. The jury had heard from Cassie Ventura directly about, in rather explicit terms, a lot of the sex acts. But the prosecution's whole case is that she was coerced into that sex because of the violence, the kind of violence that both Don Richard and Carrie Morgan said they witnessed. Now, the defense says there are other reasons for the violence. Jealousy, drugs, didn't have anything to do with coercing her into sex. But the prosecutors want the jury to hear these accounts to say that Cassie Ventura was not only telling the truth about being beat up, but that she had reason to then go along with Sean Combs' sexual demands.
Carrie Morgan may not be a household name, but in this trial, she's become one of the most significant voices. As Cassie's closest friend, Carrie hasn't just stepped forward in support. She's become a key witness whose testimony could potentially shift the entire direction of the case. What exactly does she know that others don't? And why were her words powerful enough to visibly shake Diddy, a man known for his composure? These aren't just casual questions. They strike at the heart of why this trial has taken such a dramatic and unexpected turn. To understand Carrie's impact, we have to go back. Her friendship with Cassie dates back years, long before courtroom headlines and media attention. According to people close to both women, Carrie has always been fiercely loyal, a constant presence through the highs and lows of Cassie's life. That loyalty and the deep trust between them is exactly why her testimony matters so much. Carrie wasn't just an observer. She was there. Her long-standing connection with Cassie means she witnessed, or was made aware of, things others may never have seen. Her statements aren't just accounts. They're deeply personal insights. What also sets Carrie apart is her character. Sources close to the case describe her as calm, thoughtful, and someone who speaks only when absolutely certain. She's not one to seek the spotlight or stir unnecessary drama, which is why her choice to testify carries such weight. She didn't stumble into this role. She chose to stand up, fully aware of how serious her words could be. But the biggest question still stands. What does she actually know? According to reports, Carrie's testimony includes detailed accounts, not based on rumors or assumptions, but on what she says she saw and heard firsthand. Media outlets have called her the missing piece of the case, the voice that could tie everything together. Though the full content of her statements wasn't disclosed beforehand, sources say her testimony included descriptions of alleged patterns of control, emotional manipulation, and behavior that, if verified, could dramatically alter the case's outcome. What makes this even more remarkable is Carrie's willingness to speak out against someone as high-profile and influential as Diddy. It takes undeniable courage to testify in a public courtroom against a global celebrity, especially when facing the full force of a powerful legal team. Yet Carrie didn't back down. By all accounts, this isn't about fame or attention. It's about standing up for the truth and for her friend. And that's why people are paying attention. Her role in this case isn't just important, it's pivotal. Where does that leave us? Carrie Morgan has alluded to details no one else could provide, details that paint a far more complex and troubling picture than many expected. The real shock came when she finally took the stand. And whatever she revealed during her testimony was powerful enough to shake the courtroom and Diddy to the core. Now, let's take a closer look at exactly what was said and why it left such a lasting impact.
You already mentioned the second witness today, Cassie Ventura's former best friend, Carrie Morgan. What did Carrie have to say?
So let me tell you, Carrie Morgan is crucial. And she came crucial because she comes off as credible. Because one of the first statements that she made is that she came here because she was compelled to testify. She no longer speaks to Cassie Ventura. They stopped talking in 2018 after this incident having to deal with where she was assaulted by Sean Combs, where Sean Combs grabbed her by the neck and also threw a wooden hanger at her. But also that it led to Cassie given her $30,000 so she wouldn't say anything about that specific incident. And that was the end of their relationship. She also corroborated 2 of the assaults that took place, having to deal with Cassie in terms of her being drugged and as well as her being punched. So she corroborated a lot of the testimony, but she came off as a neutral witness. And the defense wasn't able to break her as they wanted to, but was able to say that, look, it was still a loving relationship.
Carrie Morgan's testimony wasn't just another chapter in the trial. It was the moment everything changed. From the second she took her seat, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. This wasn't just any witness. This was the one people had been waiting for. Or, in Diddy's case, perhaps fearing the most. Even before she spoke, the buzz outside the courthouse made it clear. Her presence was highly anticipated. And once she began, it became immediately clear why. What Carrie had to share wasn't just surprising, it was deeply unsettling. She began by recounting years of troubling behavior she claimed to have witnessed firsthand, a portrait of a relationship marked not just by dysfunction, but by real harm. Her words painted a picture of control, emotional manipulation, and repeated moments of distress that Cassie allegedly endured. The courtroom fell into stillness as Carrie recounted specific incidents. One by one, she described situations that, according to her, involved more than just emotional strain, moments where Cassie showed physical signs of mistreatment, including visible bruises. Carrie even recalled times when tempers flared to alarming levels with serious consequences. But it wasn't only about physical harm. Carrie also spoke of psychological manipulation, alleging that Diddy used his influence to isolate Cassie, even going so far as to monitor her calls and messages in an effort to maintain control. According to Carrie, this wasn't merely a difficult relationship. It was something much more troubling. Perhaps the most impactful moment came when she described one particular night. While she didn't reveal every detail, what she did share was enough to leave the courtroom stunned. She claimed that Cassie called her in fear, saying Diddy's anger had reached a critical point. Carrie said she intervened, stepping in personally to help calm the situation, a move she admitted could have made things worse if it had escalated further. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. At one point, the judge had to call for quiet as emotions ran high. Diddy's legal team exchanged hurried glances, but it was Diddy himself who showed the most visible reaction. When Carrie alleged that he had been directly involved in a violent incident and described him as being out of control, Diddy reportedly muttered something under his breath before slamming his hand on the table, the sound echoing across the room. It was, as some witnesses described, a moment where his composure finally broke. The judge was forced to pause proceedings as the courtroom struggled to regain order. And while Carrie's testimony raised many serious allegations, one question now overshadowed everything. How would Diddy's legal team respond? Would they address her claims head-on or try to undermine her credibility? Whatever the strategy, one thing was clear. Carrie Morgan's testimony had changed the entire tone of the trial. And what followed would only deepen the drama surrounding an already high-stakes case.
And I will say, I think she seemed to say things very matter of fact. There were definitely moments where there was a little bit of what I would call sass, which I didn't think was a bad thing. I think she represented herself very well. And I felt as I read what was being said, she seems like a very credible witness. I think this is going to be one that may stick out in the jury's mind because she was subpoenaed to be here. She is speaking in defense of Cassie, but at the same time, she was also very hurt by Cassie.
Yeah.
And the way that it all came out was very honest. So it's definitely an interesting one to go through.
Yeah, I mean, she's giving a perspective that it feels more like, I don't give a crap about any of these people, so I'm going to give it to you straight. I've moved on from all this, but let's go do it. And not really throwing Cassie under the bus anyway, but
no,
clearly doing it more honestly. So, so she made it clear she was only there because of the subpoena. And she confirmed that she and Cassie, who met on a modeling shoot as teenagers, no longer speak because Ventura's boyfriend ate her. Now, was this Agnifilo the Costco lawyer did end up doing this or not?
Yes, Mark Agnifilo, or as we lovingly call him, the Costco lawyer.
Because it's just funny, because there's this buildup of he's finally going to do something during this trial. It was our first chance to see Costco lawyer step up to the stand, Kim, right? So we go through, let's see how he does, yeah?
Yeah. It was fascinating.
Diddy's legal team didn't waste a second following Carrie Morgan's powerful testimony. The moment the court reconvened, the defense moved swiftly, determined to regain control of the narrative. Their strategy was immediately clear: challenge Carrie's credibility and plant doubt around the validity of her claims. Rather than simply offer a counterargument, they aimed to dismantle the impact of her statements entirely. During cross-examination, the defense zeroed in on Carrie's relationship with Cassie, subtly suggesting that her close friendship may have clouded her judgment. "Would you say you've always supported Cassie, no matter the situation?" one lawyer reportedly asked, hinting that Carrie's loyalty might be too strong for her to provide an objective perspective. The implication that Carrie's emotional ties could influence her memories of past events, but the questioning didn't stop there. Diddy's lawyers began dissecting the timeline of her allegations, focusing on specific details from her earlier testimony. "Isn't it true that you weren't physically present for all of these incidents?" one attorney pressed, attempting to highlight potential gaps or inconsistencies in her account. Their goal was to show that parts of her story may have been secondhand or based on assumption, rather than direct experience. And when Carrie responded calmly and confidently, holding her ground, the defense pivoted again, this time questioning her motives. They raised subtle suggestions that Carrie may have had something to gain by testifying. At one point, an attorney asked, "Would you describe your relationship with Mr. Combs as positive before this?" A question that led into a broader line of inquiry, implying that Carrie might have her own personal reasons for coming forward. The suggestion was delicate but deliberate. Perhaps Carrie wasn't just a witness, but an active participant in a narrative that could harm Diddy's reputation. The exchange grew tense enough that the judge had to intervene multiple times, reminding both sides to maintain decorum. When one member of the defense grew particularly forceful in tone, the judge firmly stated, "This court will not tolerate disrespect toward any witness." Even with those warnings, Diddy's legal team had delivered their message. They were ready to challenge every word Carrie spoke if it meant protecting their client. Reactions to their approach were mixed. Some observers believed the defense had made progress in pointing out specific issues in the timeline or questioning the strength of Carrie's perspective. Others, however, felt that her calm demeanor and consistent answers under pressure only strengthened her credibility. One courtroom insider put it this way: "The real test isn't how tough the defense was. It's whether the jury sees their questions as legitimate or just an effort to discredit someone standing up for a friend." And that's the central question now hanging over the trial. Will the defense's strategy be enough to weaken Carrie's testimony, or will her words and the evidence she presented be too compelling to ignore? The answer may lie in what comes next: the physical and documented evidence Carrie brought to court, and whether it's strong enough to shift the entire direction of this high-profile case.
You two were best friends for 18 years, but now you haven't spoken with her since 2018. That's true. At the danger of being capital obvious, that's a long time. She's moved on. Objection. Why haven't you spoken with her? She did not support me after Sean assaulted me. I try that line at assault. I don't know what that means. Oh, I think it means I set the line at assault. I don't cross the line of assault or whatever. You reached a settlement with Miss Ventura? The money came from Mr. Combs. So this was after, I believe, she was assaulted by Diddy, that that in order to hush her up, Diddy gave her some money, or they settled it, however it is. That's a pattern that seems to be happening with him throughout the decades. So Agnifilo shows Carrie Morgan photos, then asks, "Do you know if Louise Hayes is a self-help author about self-affirmation?" "Yes." "Why did you send him this with words of encouragement?" "I don't remember sending it." "Okay. I want to show you a few more photos. But first, let's talk about the incident where he put his hands on your neck. Were you and Cassie using any drugs at the time?" "No." "What did he say?" "He said, 'Who is she cheating with?'" "You went to an urgent care and not the hospital, right?" Like she's saying just right as the answer. But you don't the prosecutors. Oh, but you told the prosecutors it was bloody and you went to the hospital. "I don't remember that." "Look at this." And so this is material not shown to the jury. I see that I said that. Now in this, I think it's like now in cross-examination. I'm not sure what that means. Okay. I see that I said that. Do you remember Mr. Agnifilo asking you about an incident in LA? Objection, overruled, and he hit her like in Jamaica, arguing. Oh, okay, that's what it is. Okay. I'm sorry. Let me go back. So they were doing right here. Agnifilo is Diddy's attorney. That's why I wasn't understanding. So they did the cross. All right. So now this is the prosecutors again asking her questions. They get to come back up. So that's who's asking. That's like, why is Agnifilo asking a question about himself?
Carrie Morgan didn't just walk into the courtroom with a story. She brought proof. Her testimony wasn't based on vague memories or hearsay. It was grounded in tangible, corroborated evidence that sent shockwaves through the room. If her words had power, the receipts she brought with her changed everything. What Carrie revealed didn't just support Cassie's allegations. It reshaped the entire trajectory of the trial. What kind of evidence did she provide? According to Courtroom insiders, Carrie submitted a combination of text messages, photographs, and even audio recordings, all of which aligned closely with her claims. Mobile phone the first major reveal came in the form of text messages exchanged between Carrie and Cassie. These weren't casual conversations. They were messages sent during the time Cassie says she was being abused. In them, Cassie reportedly described moments of fear and desperation in real time. Excerpts read aloud in court described chilling situations, enough to leave the gallery in stunned silence. One courtroom observer even said the judge looked visibly shaken as the messages were entered into the record. These weren't texts remembered years later. They were digital timestamps of terror, sent in the heat of the moment. Camera with flash the photos. Next came the photographs. Carrie testified that Cassie had often sent her pictures of her injuries, documenting what she said she couldn't tell anyone else. These photos were described as graphic and heartbreaking. Images of bruises, marks, each one tied to a corresponding message where Cassie reportedly expressed fear of what might happen if she tried to leave. The prosecution presented these images methodically, and the effect was palpable. Even members of the press said you could hear a pin drop in the courtroom. For many, this was the moment the case stopped feeling abstract and became painfully real. Speaker high-volume the recordings, but then came the most shocking element of all, audio recordings. Carrie reportedly turned over voice recordings of arguments between Cassie and Diddy, some of which were played for the courtroom. In one clip, Diddy is allegedly heard yelling with an intensity that matched earlier claims of his volatile temper. Another reportedly contained threats that sent a visible chill through the gallery. Even as the defense argued the recordings were taken out of context, the tone and aggression in Diddy's voice told its own story. One insider noted that the jury appeared visibly affected, some looking away, others stone-faced, absorbing every word. A journalist present later wrote, "The courtroom was frozen. Every breath felt heavier." This was no longer a matter of opinion. It was undeniable. Magnifying glass tilted left. What this means, Carrie's testimony wasn't just another chapter. It was the turning point. Her evidence painted a picture that felt impossible to ignore. A timeline supported by words, images, and sound. This wasn't hearsay. This was documentation. And for the first time in this high-profile case, it felt like the truth had found a voice. And it came with proof. With the texts, the photos, and the audio clips, Carrie didn't just support Cassie's claims. She transformed them into something solid, something that can't be brushed aside. Compass, where do we go from here? The trial isn't over. Not even close. But the balance of power has clearly shifted. Carrie Morgan has become more than just a friend testifying in court. She's become the linchpin of a case that's now far more than a he-said-she-said dispute. And yet, as dramatic as this moment has been, it feels like we're only scratching the surface. What happens next could be even more explosive. This isn't just about a legal battle. It's about the courage to speak up against power, the cost of silence, and the undeniable strength of truth when backed by evidence. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe, because as this story continues to unfold, one thing is clear: the world is watching.